When my family vanished on my 65th birthday, I thought loneliness was the worst part, until a stranger knocked and whispered that my grandson was actually his. In that moment, I realized my daughter-in-law hadn't just excluded me, she'd been hiding something far darker. Before I tell you everything, do me a favor. Subscribe and comment where you're watching from so this story reaches more people. My name is Vivian Hale, and when I turned 65, I threw myself a birthday dinner. Not a casual lunch. Not a simple cake. A full dinner. I spent 3 weeks planning it, down to the smallest detail, because family was supposed to mean something. I decorated my dining room with fresh lilies and pale green ribbons. I polished the silverware my mother gave me. I laid out the good china that only came out on holidays. I even wore a new dress. A slate blue one with small pearl buttons, the kind my late husband used to say made me look graceful. The table was set for 8. Me, my son Darren, his wife Isabella, my grandchildren Leo, 7, and Maya, 5, my sister Marjorie, and her husband Graham. Each place card was handwritten in my best cursive, arranged neatly in front of the plates that gleamed under candlelight. At 6 o'clock, everything was ready. At 6:30, the candles had melted halfway. At 6:45, the roast in the oven had started to dry out. At 7, my phone sat silent. I called Darren. Straight to voicemail. Isabella. Voicemail. Marjorie. Nothing. By 7:15, I was pacing the dining room, checking the driveway like a hopeful child waiting for someone who'd already decided not to show up. By 8 o'clock, I understood. They weren't late. They weren't stuck. They weren't coming. I sat down at the head of the table, staring at the 8 untouched plates I had so carefully arranged. The silence in the house felt wrong, like the air had been scraped out. My first mistake was checking social media. When the screen lit up, the world shifted. There was Darren, my son, smiling brighter than he had in months. Isabella stood next to him in a white sundress, her arm wrapped tightly around him like she owned the entire moment. Behind them, the sea stretched out in a breathtaking shade of blue. Caption read, "Celebrating life on the Adriatic. So grateful for this family trip." Family trip. Family. I scrolled with shaking hands. There was Leo at a beach building a sandcastle. There was Maya licking gelato, her cheeks sticky and sun-kissed. There was my sister sipping a drink at the ship's lounge. Every single person who was supposed to be at my table. Every single one of them. Except me. My humiliation sat heavy and cold. It wasn't the kind of pain that made you cry. It was the kind that made you numb. I stared at the caption again. The word grateful mocked me. A notification buzzed. It was Darren. "Sorry, Mom. Should have told you, we're out of town this week. Bella planned a surprise cruise. Happy birthday." Surprise. The timing wasn't a coincidence. The silence wasn't a mistake. This was an oversight. This was Isabella. She had slowly, skillfully been removing me from the picture for years. I just hadn't seen it fully, not until that night. I cleaned the table with hands that barely felt like my own. I wrapped the cake. I put away the silver. I blew out the candles that had melted down to ugly lumps. And when I shut off the dining room lights, I caught my reflection in the window. Small, alone, dim against the dark glass. I had never felt more erased. That night I didn't sleep. I lay awake replaying moments from the last few years. All the little signs that didn't seem like signs at the time. The birthday party for Leo that Isabella accidentally moved to another day, only for photos to appear later proving it had happened exactly when I'd originally been told. The school play she said was cancelled due to sickness, but pictures appeared of her and Darren sitting in the front row smiling proudly. The Christmas dinner she insisted Darren skip at my house because he was overwhelmed, only for me to later learn they'd hosted a large gathering at their place. Isabella never said anything directly rude. That wasn't her style. Her cruelty was quiet, careful. A soft lie here. A scheduling mix-up there. A gentle suggestion that I deserved to rest more, or shouldn't strain myself. She didn't push me out. She nudged me a few inches at a time until I was standing outside my own family looking in. And I never questioned it because I wanted peace. I wanted to believe she loved my son and grandchildren. But now everything snapped into focus. Around 6:30 the next morning, after a full night of not sleeping, I stood at my kitchen window staring at the empty bird feeder and thinking, she planned it. Isabella planned the humiliation. She didn't want me on that cruise. She didn't want me at birthdays or recitals or dinners. She didn't want me close enough to see something she was hiding. The realization made my stomach churn. 3 days later, when the doorbell rang at 10 in the morning, I expected a delivery. Instead, when I peered through the peephole, a man I had never seen stood on my porch. Early 40s. Tired eyes. Nervous hands. "Can I help you?" I asked through the door. "Are you Vivian Hale?" he asked softly. "Yes. My name is Samuel Ortiz," he said, voice tight. "And I need to talk to you about your daughter-in-law. About Isabella." Every muscle in my body went rigid. "What about her?" He swallowed, looked at the ground, looked back up. His eyes were full of something broken. "I think my son might be living in your son's house." The world around me went silent. "What did you say?" "Your grandson," he whispered. "Leo. 7 years old. Dark hair. A scar on his chin from falling off a bike when he was 4. His voice trembled. "I think he's my child." I felt the air leave my lungs. "You'd better come inside," I said. Because a man doesn't show up with eyes like that unless he's holding a truth capable of blowing someone's life apart. And mine was about to shatter. Samuel Ortiz stepped into my living room like a man walking into a courtroom he wasn't sure he'd walk out of. He sat on the edge of my sofa, hands clasped so tightly I could see the strain in his knuckles. He didn't accept the cup of coffee I offered. His stomach, he said, was too unsettled. "I know this is going to sound unbelievable," he began quietly, "but please, hear me out before you judge." I sat across from him, hands folded in my lap, my heart beating so hard I felt it in the base of my throat. "I'm listening." He inhaled through his nose, gathering himself. 7 years ago, before she was Isabella, your daughter-in-law went by the name Rachel West. My skin prickled. The first crack in the story I thought I knew. "We were together for almost 2 years, he continued. "We lived together, planned a life. She got pregnant. I was over the moon." His voice broke slightly. "She kept saying she needed time to adjust. That we shouldn't rush anything. But I figured we'd get married once the baby came. I already had a ring." He paused, swallowing. "And then one day, she was just gone. Gone." The words sat between us like ash. "No note?" I asked. "No explanation?" "Nothing," he whispered. "Her clothes, her belongings, everything she owned, gone. I came home from work and our apartment looked like she had never lived there." He squeezed his eyes shut for a moment. "I filed a missing person report." The police shrugged. "Said adults disappear all the time." "I hired a private investigator, but after 3 months, he told me she didn't want to be found." My stomach clenched. This wasn't a woman who made mistakes. This was a woman who disappeared on purpose. "But I didn't stop looking," he said, lifting his gaze to mine. "I checked records, social media, out-of-state databases. Nothing. She had erased herself." "And then?" I asked, barely breathing. 3 months ago," he said, "I went to a medical conference in Baymont. During lunch, I was walking downtown when I saw her." His voice was so low I had to lean forward to hear. "She was holding the hand of a little boy." He looked at me with eyes full of grief. A boy who looked exactly like me when I was that age. I felt the room tilt, the edges of my vision tightening. "He has my eyes," Samuel whispered. "My chin. Even that little habit of tilting his head when he's thinking too hard." He swallowed. "I followed them for 4 blocks. I didn't want to scare her, but I couldn't stop. I knew." My pulse hammered in my throat. "Are you telling me," I said slowly, "that you believe my grandson, Leo, is actually your biological child?" "I don't believe it," he said, voice cracking. "I know it." He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. On the screen was a photo, an old one, of a small boy about 7 years old with a mischievous grin and thick dark hair. It could have been Leo's school portrait. The resemblance was eerie, undeniable, devastating. I stared at the photo, unable to breathe. "But Darren, he believes he's the father," I murmured. "They said Leo came 3 weeks early." Samuel gave a humorless, painful little laugh. "That's exactly what she told me too," he said. "That the baby might come early. That it was normal." He rubbed a hand across his face. "But the timeline doesn't lie. Leo is exactly the age my son would be." Words felt sharp in my mouth. "And Isabella never told him. Never told Darren." She didn't tell me, Samuel said softly. She just ran. He reached into his jacket again, this time pulling out a thin manila envelope. I didn't want to come here until I was absolutely sure, he said. My mouth went dry. Inside that envelope was truth. Brutal. Unforgiving. He handed it to me. My hands shook as I opened it. A lab report. Dates. Numbers. Percentages. Paternity probability. 99.7%. It hit me like a physical blow. It was real. It was undeniable. Leo wasn't Darren's biological son. The boy I'd held in my arms. The boy whose drawings covered my refrigerator. The boy who once said, "Grandma, you smell like cinnamon." He wasn't my blood. I set the papers down, trying to steady my breathing. There's more, Samuel said quietly. My head snapped up. What more could there possibly be? He hesitated, as if unsure how much truth a person could survive in one morning. My investigator dug into her past, he finally said. The woman you know as Isabella Hale has gone by at least 3 different names. Rachel West was one. Before that she was Lena Morris in Nevada. And before that Kara Sterling in Oregon. I felt cold crawl up my spine. She married twice before, he continued. Both marriages lasted less than 2 years. Both ended with her walking away with money. Alimony settlements. Quick divorces. My breath hitched. Each time, Samuel said, she isolated the men from their families. Fully. Quietly. Made them dependent on her until they had no one else. My heart pounded. Vivian, he said gently, she's doing the same thing to your son. I didn't want to hear it, but I knew. Deep down I knew. Isabella had been erasing me from Darren's life. One birthday, one holiday, one lie at a time. She had done it so casually, so expertly that I had blamed myself. She's been pushing you out, Samuel continued. Because you're the only person with enough history, enough memory, to question the timeline. To realize Leo doesn't fit. It made sickening sense. And Darren, I whispered. He has no idea. He thinks he's the father. He loves that boy. He raised him. Why would he ever doubt it? Samuel leaned forward, voice trembling. That's why I came to you. I didn't want to destroy his life. I didn't want to just drop this bomb on him. I needed someone who understood what this woman is capable of. I pressed a hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. You think she can hurt them? I asked, voice barely audible. I think, he said, she can hurt anyone if she feels her secrets are threatened. The room felt too small. Too warm. Too full of truths I didn't ask for. What do you want? I whispered. I want to protect my son, he said. And yours. He stood slowly and placed a card on my coffee table. Think about what you want to do, he said. But don't take too long. She comes back from that cruise soon. His eyes darkened. And when she does, she'll know something changed. He paused at the doorway. And Vivian, be careful. When the door clicked shut, my house felt entirely different. Not empty. Not lonely. Like the calm before a storm. I looked at the DNA test again. Those numbers. That merciless certainty. This wasn't just deception. This wasn't a single lie. This was a lifetime designed by a woman I no longer recognized. And for the first time in a long time, something inside me, something sharp and fierce, began to stand up. She had erased me. But she had underestimated me. For 3 days after Samuel left, I moved through my house like someone walking on ice. Slowly, carefully, making sure nothing cracked under me. I kept the DNA papers on my kitchen table, weighed down with a ceramic bowl so they wouldn't drift away like a bad dream. I must have read them 100 times. The numbers never changed. The truth sat there, heavy, absolute. Leo wasn't Darren's child. And Isabella, whatever her real name was, had built her entire life with my son on a lie. I knew I couldn't tell Darren over the phone. I couldn't text him, couldn't drop this into his world without warning. If I did, Isabella would get to him first. And she was good, too good, at shaping the narrative before anyone noticed they'd been led. So I waited. And planned. And steadied myself for what I knew would be the hardest conversation of my life. On the 3rd evening after the cruise, I stood in my kitchen gripping my phone until my knuckles went white. I had to invite them to dinner. Not to pretend anymore, but to confront the truth in the only place that still felt like mine. My dining room. I dialed. Mom, Darren answered warmly, sounding rested, happy, unaware of the storm circling him. We just got back today. The trip was amazing. I'm sure it was, I said, my voice calm, too calm. Darren, I'd like the whole family to come to dinner this Saturday. There's something important I need to discuss. Important? He hesitated. Is everything okay? Yes, I lied, but it's something we need to talk about as a family. Me. Isabella. There was a pause. A heavy one. Let me check with Bella, he said. I could hear muffled voices, her tone sharp, controlled. Then silence. Then Darren again. Hey. Saturday at 6. Good, I said. I'll cook. When I hung up, I stared at the empty kitchen and whispered, it's finally time. Saturday came gray and rainy, the kind of weather that makes houses feel small and intimate. I wore a simple navy cardigan and pinned my hair back. I didn't want to look dramatic. I wanted to look steady. The roast went into the oven. I mashed potatoes. I steamed green beans the way Darren loved when he was a boy. I knew this might be the last family dinner we ever had under my roof. I wanted it to taste like the ones we'd lost. At exactly 6, their car pulled into the driveway. I heard doors slam, the murmur of children's voices, the click of heels. Leo burst through the door first, his backpack bouncing. Grandma, we got you a keychain from the ship. He held out a little metal charm shaped like an anchor. My heart softened despite everything. I hugged him. Thank you, sweetheart. Maya followed, quieter, clinging to a small stuffed bear. She walked into my arms without hesitation. Then Darren. He looked tired in a way I hadn't noticed before the cruise. The stress lines around his eyes had deepened. Mom, he said, hugging me. Smells amazing in here. And then Isabella walked in. Her smile was flawless. Polished. Practiced. She wore a pale pink blouse and gold earrings that glimmered under the light. She scanned the room the way a cat scans new territory, quietly, calculatingly. Vivian, she said sweetly. Thank you for having us. As always, I said, forcing cordiality, you're welcome. Her eyes lingered on the table, on the good china, the silverware, the lilies. Her jaw tightened by a fraction. She was remembering my birthday table. The one she ensured remained untouched. And she knew this wasn't just a dinner. During the meal, the children chatted about dolphins and swimming pools on the ship. They were glowing, pure, untouched by the adult deceit that had circled them their whole lives. Darren laughed along, but nervously. He kept glancing at me, sensing something was wrong even though I smiled and passed the potatoes. Isabella remained poised, but her eyes flickered with suspicion. She could smell tension the way sharks sense blood. When the plates were cleared and the children settled into the living room with a movie, I returned to the table. The manila folder was already there, placed neatly beside my glass of water. Darren glanced at it. Mom, what's going on? I sat down, folded my hands and took a breath that felt like it scraped my ribs on the way out. I invited you tonight because something has come to my attention, I said softly. Something important. Something that affects all of us. Isabella's smile sharpened. Oh, is this about the cruise, Vivian? I told Darren you might feel left out, but it was last minute. No, I said. This isn't about the cruise. Her smile faltered. It's about Leo. Darren froze. The air froze. Even the rain outside felt still. What about Leo? He whispered. I opened the folder and slid the DNA report across the table toward him. This is a paternity test, I said. And it shows that you are not Leo's biological father. For a moment no one moved. Darren stared at the paper as if it were written in a language he had never seen. He read the numbers, the dates, the certainty. Then he looked at me, confusion turning to horror. What is this? His voice broke. Why would you, how would you even? Isabella stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. This is insane, she snapped. You're trying to poison Darren against me. Against our family. Sit down, Isabella, I said quietly. She blinked. Few people had ever told her no. What did you just say? Sit down. She didn't sit. But she didn't leave either. Control flickered in her eyes. Darren's hands shook as he held the paper. This can't be right, he whispered. Bella, tell me this isn't true. I reached into the folder again and placed the investigator's documents on the table. Her previous marriages, aliases, timelines. Her real name. Her pattern. Her lies. Darren stared stunned. Isabella's face shifted, panic, anger, calculation, before she forced it back under control. Darren, she said, voice trembling in practiced vulnerability, this is all being twisted. Your mother has never liked me. You know that. She's trying to destroy us. Destroy you. I repeated. I didn't lie about who I was. I didn't hide my past. I didn't trick someone into raising another man's child. Darren looked at her, searching her face for denial. For truth. Bella, he said choked, tell me this isn't real. For once Isabella couldn't speak. Her silence was the answer. Darren's face crumpled, not with anger first, but with heartbreak so deep it made my own eyes sting. His voice came out small. When were you going to tell me? Isabella opened her mouth, then closed it again. I had never seen her at a loss for words. The truth had cornered her. And the woman who so easily controlled every situation had nowhere left to run. For a long, tremoring moment no one spoke. Darren sat frozen with the DNA test crumpled slightly in his shaking hands. Isabella, Rachel, Lena, Kara, whatever name she once wore, stood perfectly still as if she could control the truth by refusing to move. The rain against the windows was the only sound in the room. Finally, Darren exhaled, a broken, empty sound I had never heard from him before. Bella, he whispered, please, say something. Anything. Her jaw worked, but words didn't come. I watched her search for the right mask to put on. Soft victimhood, outraged innocence, frantic denial, but none of them fit anymore. The truth had caught her, and she looked like a woman cornered by her own history. He tried anyway. Darren, you have to understand, she said, voice wobbling in a way that felt rehearsed. I didn't tell you because I was scared. I was alone. I didn't know what to do. And when we met you were so kind, it just happened so fast. So fast that you hid an entire human being's parentage? Darren snapped, his voice breaking in half. So fast that you lied about who you were? Your past marriages? Your names? He shoved the documents toward her. Is any part of our relationship even real? Isabella's lips parted but no sound emerged. Silence again. Darren pressed his palms against the table, his shoulders shaking. I loved you, he said hollow. I loved you so much I believed everything you ever told me. I trusted you with my life. With my children. She flinched at the word children and something darkened in her eyes. They are my children, she snapped suddenly. I raised them. I protected them. And who are you to? Protected. Darren repeated, voice rising with disbelief. From what? From my own mother? From their real father? From the family you cut me off from for years. Her expression flickered, fear, then anger, then that coldness I had felt from her for years without being able to name it. She turned on me. You did this, she hissed. You've always been jealous, always trying to control Darren. I lost him because of you, I said quietly. Not because I pushed. Because you pulled. Her mouth opened but Darren spoke first. Mom didn't isolate me from her, he said broken. You did. Every missed birthday. Every holiday you forgot to tell her. Every lie about events being rescheduled. Every time you told me she was tired or confused or struggling. You shaped my view of her on purpose. The truth hit her like a slap. Her nostrils flared. If I hadn't, she said coldly, you would have let her run our lives. When I hung up, I stared at the empty kitchen and whispered, it's finally time. Saturday came gray and rainy, the kind of weather that makes houses feel small and intimate. I wore a simple navy cardigan and pinned my hair back. I didn't want to look dramatic. I wanted to look steady. The roast went into the oven. I mashed potatoes. I steamed green beans the way Darren loved when he was a boy. I knew this might be the last family dinner we ever had under my roof. I wanted it to taste like the ones we'd lost. At exactly 6, their car pulled into the driveway. I heard doors slam, the murmur of children's voices, the click of heels. Leo burst through the door first, his backpack bouncing. Grandma, we got you a keychain from the ship. He held out a little metal charm shaped like an anchor. My heart softened despite everything. I hugged him. Thank you, sweetheart. Maya followed, quieter, clinging to a small stuffed bear. She walked into my arms without hesitation. Then Darren. He looked tired in a way I hadn't noticed before the cruise. The stress lines around his eyes had deepened. "Mom," he said, hugging me. "Smells amazing in here." And then Isabella walked in. Her smile was flawless. Polished. Practiced. She wore a pale pink blouse and gold earrings that glimmered under the light. She scanned the room the way a cat scans new territory, quietly, calculatingly. "Vivian," she said sweetly. "Thank you for having us." "As always," I said, forcing cordiality. "You're welcome." Her eyes lingered on the table, on the good china, the silverware, the lilies. Her jaw tightened by a fraction. She was remembering my birthday table. The one she ensured remained untouched. And she knew this wasn't just a dinner. During the meal, the children chatted about dolphins and swimming pools on the ship. They were glowing, pure, untouched by the adult deceit that had circled them their whole lives. Darren laughed along, but nervously. He kept glancing at me, sensing something was wrong even though I smiled and passed the potatoes. Isabella remained poised, but her eyes flickered with suspicion. She could smell tension the way sharks sense blood. When the plates were cleared and the children settled into the living room with a movie, I returned to the table. The manila folder was already there, placed neatly beside my glass of water. Darren glanced at it. "Mom, what's going on?" I sat down, folded my hands and took a breath that felt like it scraped my ribs on the way out. "I invited you tonight because something has come to my attention," I said softly. "Something important. Something that affects all of us." Isabella's smile sharpened. "Oh, is this about the cruise, Vivian? I told Darren you might feel left out, but it was last minute." "No," I said. "This isn't about the cruise." Her smile faltered. "It's about Leo." Darren froze. The air froze. Even the rain outside felt still. "What about Leo?" he whispered. I opened the folder and slid the DNA report across the table toward him. "This is a paternity test," I said. "And it shows that you are not Leo's biological father." For a moment no one moved. Darren stared at the paper as if it were written in a language he had never seen. He read the numbers, the dates, the certainty. Then he looked at me, confusion turning to horror. What is this?" His voice broke. How would you even?" Isabella stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. "This is insane," she snapped. "You're trying to poison Darren against me. Against our family." "Sit down, Isabella," I said quietly. She blinked. Few people had ever told her no. "What did you just say?" "Sit down." She didn't sit. But she didn't leave either. Control flickered in her eyes. Darren's hands shook as he held the paper. "This can't be right," he whispered. "Bella, tell me this isn't true." I reached into the folder again and placed the investigator's documents on the table. Her previous marriages, aliases, timelines. Her real name. Her pattern. Her lies. Darren stared, stunned. Isabella's face shifted. Panic, anger, calculation, before she forced it back under control. "Darren," she said, voice trembling in practiced vulnerability, "this is all being twisted. Your mother has never liked me. You know that. She's trying to destroy us." "Destroy you?" I repeated. "I didn't lie about who I was. I didn't hide my past. I didn't trick someone into raising another man's child." Darren looked at her, searching her face for denial. For truth. "Bella," he said, choked, "tell me this isn't real." For once, Isabella couldn't speak. Her silence was the answer. Darren's face crumpled, not with anger first, but with heartbreak so deep it made my own eyes sting. His voice came out small. "When were you going to tell me?" Isabella opened her mouth, then closed it again. I had never seen her at a loss for words. The truth had cornered her. And the woman who so easily controlled every situation had nowhere left to run. For a long, tremoring moment no one spoke. Darren sat frozen with the DNA test crumpled slightly in his shaking hands. Isabella, Rachel, Lena, Kara, whatever name she once wore, stood perfectly still as if she could control the truth by refusing to move. The rain against the windows was the only sound in the room. Finally, Darren exhaled, a broken, empty sound I had never heard from him before. "Bella," he whispered, "please, say something. Anything." Her jaw worked, but words didn't come. I watched her search for the right mask to put on. Soft victimhood, outraged innocence, frantic denial, but none of them fit anymore. The truth had caught her, and she looked like a woman cornered by her own history. He tried anyway. "Darren, you have to understand," she said, voice wobbling in a way that felt rehearsed. "I didn't tell you because I was scared. I was alone. I didn't know what to do. And when we met, you were so kind, it just happened so fast." "So fast that you hid an entire human being's parentage?" Darren snapped, his voice breaking in half. "So fast that you lied about who you were? Your past marriages? Your names?" He shoved the documents toward her. "Is any part of our relationship even real?" Isabella's lips parted, but no sound emerged. Silence again. Darren pressed his palms against the table, his shoulders shaking. "I loved you," he said hollow. "I loved you so much I believed everything you ever told me. I trusted you with my life. With my children." She flinched at the word children, and something darkened in her eyes. "They are my children," she snapped suddenly. "I raised them. I protected them. And who are you to protect it?" Darren repeated, voice rising with disbelief. "From what? From my own mother? From their real father? From the family you cut me off from for years?" Her expression flickered, fear, then anger, then that coldness I had felt from her for years without being able to name it. She turned on me. "You did this," she hissed. "You've always been jealous, always trying to control Darren." "I lost him because of you," I said quietly. "Not because I pushed. Because you pulled." Her mouth opened, but Darren spoke first. "Mom didn't isolate me from her," he said, broken. "You did. Every missed birthday. Every holiday you forgot to tell her. Every lie about events being rescheduled. Every time you told me she was tired or confused or struggling. You shaped my view of her on purpose." The truth hit her like a slap. Her nostrils flared. "If I hadn't," she said coldly, "you would have let her run our lives." I stared at her. "You mean I would have noticed the timeline?" I said. "I would have seen that Leo's age didn't align with when you met Darren." Isabella whipped her head toward me. For the first time her mask cracked wide open. "You would have ruined everything," she said. "There was the real her. The one who planned my birthday humiliation. The one who stood smiling on that cruise ship knowing she'd erased me. The one who had stolen a child's identity and built a life around it." Darren leaned back in his chair, devastated. "So that's it," he whispered. "You used me." She folded her arms tightly across her chest, a defensive shield. "I did what I had to do," she said. "I was pregnant. I needed stability. You were safe." "Safe." Darren repeated, stunned. "You married me because I was safe?" She didn't deny it. Instead, her voice lowered into something icy. "You think Samuel could have cared for a child? He barely had a career. He wasn't dependable. I wasn't going to let my baby grow up with a man who couldn't provide." "That wasn't your choice," I said sharply. "It was his right. His child." She shot me a look of pure, sharp venom. "You stayed out of it for 7 years, she snapped. "Why start caring now?" I felt anger rise, deep, old, and finally free. "I didn't stay out of it," I said. "You forced me out." Her silence was admission enough. Darren pushed his chair back abruptly, scraping the wood floor. "I can't breathe," he said hoarsely. I need a minute." He walked away from the table into the hallway, hand on his chest. Isabella watched him leave with a look I could only describe as calculation. She wasn't worried about his pain, she was assessing her next move. He turned back to me. "You think you've won," she said low. "You think showing him these papers will magically fix your relationship with him? He'll resent you for this." "No," I said. "He'll resent you." She gave a cold, humorless laugh. "You have no idea what I can do." "Oh, I do," I said. "You erase people. You erase history. You erase truth. But you didn't erase this." I tapped the DNA test. At that moment, Leo's laughter drifted from the living room. The sound pierced something in both of us. She straightened, shoulders rigid. "He's my son," she said fiercely. "You will not take him from me." "Leo has a right to know who his father is," I said. "And to have every person who loves him in his life." Her eyes filled with something dark and fiery. "You have no idea what battles you're starting." "And you have no idea," I replied quietly, "how long I've been preparing for this." The doorway creaked. Darren had returned. He looked exhausted, older, like the truth had sucked years out of him in minutes. Bella, he said, voice raw, I want you to leave. He stared stunned. What? Take the kids, he said. Go home. I need time. I need space. And I need honesty. Her face hardened. If I walk out that door with them, I'm not coming back, she warned. Darren inhaled shakily. I think, he said, you already left a long time ago. Her eyes burned. Then she turned sharply, heels clicking across the hardwood floor. Leo. Maya, she called tightly. Get your things. Leo ran in, clutching his anchor keychain. Are we leaving, Mommy? Her voice faltered for a moment. Yes. He turned to me. Bye, Grandma, he said softly. Will we see you tomorrow? I knelt, hugged him tightly. Always. Isabella stiffened. Maya walked in slowly, clutching her stuffed bear. I want to stay with Grandma, she murmured. Isabella grabbed her hand too tightly. No, she said flatly. We're leaving. They walked out. The door slammed with a violence that made the house shake. The silence afterward felt heavy, suffocating. Darren collapsed into the nearest chair, put his head in his hands and sobbed. And all I could do was sit beside him, place my hand gently on his back and let him grieve the life he thought he had. Because now that the truth had torn through everything, nothing would ever be the same again. The day after the confrontation, the house felt strange. Too quiet, too still, as if it were waiting for something to happen. Darren stayed with me that night. He fell asleep on the couch, his body curled in on itself like he was trying to hold his broken pieces together. I checked on him twice. Once at midnight and once at dawn, and each time he slept the same way, rigid, exhausted, wounded. By morning he sat at my kitchen table staring into a mug of cold coffee like it might give him answers. Did you know? He asked suddenly. I didn't pretend to misunderstand. No, I said softly. Not until Samuel came. He nodded once. A hollow nod. The kind people give when they're not sure if believing something hurts more than rejecting it. She lied to me, Mom. His voice cracked. She lied to me for 7 years. I reached over and touched his hand. I know. He swallowed hard. I loved her, he whispered. I thought she loved me. She loved what you could give her, I said gently. She loved the stability, the attention, the life she could build out of your kindness. He flinched at the word kindness. And the kids, he whispered. Did she love them? Or were they just tools? I hated that he had to ask that. I hated even more that I didn't know the answer. Leo and Maya are innocent, I said softly. Whatever she did, whatever her intentions, they are children. And you are their father, Darren. Whatever biology says, your love raised them. He didn't respond. He just stared at the table, breathing unevenly, grief rolling through him in slow waves. Round 9, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. It was a text. Darren is unstable. I'm taking the kids. Don't contact us. Isabella. My stomach dropped. I showed Darren. He stared at the message, jaw tightening, breathing suddenly shallow. She can't do that, he said. She can't just take them and run. But she could. She had done it before. To Samuel. To her previous husbands. To anyone who threatened the life she constructed. And she would do it again. We need to get ahead of this, I said firmly. Today. Darren looked at me, eyes full of fear. Mom, what do we do? Our first stop was a family law attorney. A tight-lipped woman named Alyssa Kent who radiated competence. She listened to everything. Samuel's claim, the DNA test, the aliases, the marriages, the timing, and the longer she listened, the darker her face became. This is serious, she said finally. Your wife has a documented history of identity changes, abrupt disappearances and possible fraud. He tapped the DNA test. And this changes everything. Darren nodded slowly. What can we do? We file for temporary custody immediately, she said. Given her history, the court will be concerned about flight risk. The words flight risk hit Darren like a punch. You think she'll run? Alyssa's answer was immediate. Yes. He wasn't guessing. He was certain. And Samuel? I asked. What about his rights? Alyssa folded her hands. If he wants to file for paternity, he can. But for now, Darren, you're the legal father on paper. That gives you standing to protect the children from disappearing. Darren exhaled shakily, rubbing his forehead. But what if she takes them out of state? He whispered. Or out of the country? Alyssa's expression hardened. Then we call law enforcement. Immediately. The word enforcement made the room feel colder. After the attorney filed the emergency paperwork, Darren and I went to Samuel's apartment. He opened the door wearing a rumpled shirt and an expression that told me he hadn't slept either. His face shifted from exhaustion to concern as soon as he saw us. "Is everything okay?" he asked. "No," Darren said hoarsely. "She took the kids." Samuel froze. "She what?" Darren handed him the phone. Samuel read the text, jaw tightening. "She's running," he whispered. Again. There was a bitterness in his voice but also something else. Fear. Not for himself now, for the child he never got to know. He looked at Darren. "Do you want me involved? Or do you want me to stay back?" And this was the moment that broke me a little inside. Because Darren looked at him with the eyes of a man who had been lied to so deeply he could no longer tell who was safe. "I don't know," he said quietly. "I don't know anything right now." Samuel nodded understandingly. He didn't push. Didn't assert his rights. He simply said, "If there's anything I can do, tell me." Darren nodded, tears gathering. "Thank you." As we left, Samuel touched my arm gently. "She's dangerous when she feels cornered," he said. "Don't underestimate her." I didn't. I never had. But hearing it from the man who had been left behind once already chilled me all over again. With temporary custody filed, we headed to Darren's house to see if Isabella was even there. The driveway was empty. Inside, the living room looked scraped. The kids' backpacks were gone. Their coats. Their little shoes by the door. Their toothbrushes. Isabella's clothes. Her jewelry. Her files. Her things were missing too, but not everything, just enough to leave quickly. Fast enough that she didn't take sentimental objects, only essentials. A tactical exit. Darren sank onto the couch, head in his hands. "She left," he whispered. "She actually left." "She will contact you," I said. "Not because she wants to, because she needs control. He always has. She will try to spin a narrative." Darren looked up, drained. "What should I do when she calls?" "You don't answer," I said. "Everything goes through the attorney now." He nodded shakily. "Mom, what if she leaves the country?" "We'll find her," I said firmly. "Before she does anything irreversible." But inside I felt the tremor of fear. Because Isabella had a pattern. And patterns don't break, they repeat. At 4 p.m, Darren's phone buzzed. He grabbed it. "Isabella." A voicemail this time. He didn't listen. He handed the phone to me. "I can't," he whispered. I nodded and pressed play. Her voice was steady. Too steady. "Darren, I'm sorry you're upset. I know you're confused. But I need you to understand I did everything to protect our family. Your mother has manipulated you into believing things that aren't true. I'm taking the kids somewhere safe until you calm down. Call me when you're ready to talk. And don't involve lawyers. It'll only make things worse." I paused the message. "Do you hear it?" I asked quietly. Darren looked at me lost. "Hear what?" "She's not scared," I said. "She's not sorry. She's maintaining control. She believes she can still win you back." He shook his head slowly. "No. Not anymore." I put my hand over his. "You're stronger than you think." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence said everything. By evening, the emergency custody order was approved. The notice was sent to law enforcement. Her description. The children's names. The car model. The urgency. And now, all we could do was wait. The kind of waiting that squeezes your heart. The kind that turns every phone vibration into dread. The kind that makes you stare at the window expecting headlights that don't come. Around 9, Darren finally fell asleep again on the couch, exhausted and emotionally spent. I sat in the armchair beside him, lights low, listening to the rain soften outside. My phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. My pulse kicked. "Vivian. We need to talk." Alone. No signature. No name. But I knew who it was. Isabella. The woman who had humiliated me. Manipulated my son. Taken my grandchildren. And was now asking to speak privately. My hands trembled as I stared at the message. Because what she wanted from me now would change everything. I stared at the text glowing on my screen. Vivian, we need to talk. Alone. No punctuation. No explanation. Just that one sentence. I looked over at Darren asleep on the couch, one arm slung over his chest like his heart hurt too much to lie still. His face was pale, tear-stained, exhausted. He had nothing left in him tonight. Not anger, not hope, not even fear. Just a hollow ache. The phone buzzed again. Tonight. Please. A chill went through me. Isabella didn't plead. She commanded. I typed one word back. Where? Her response came instantly. The old Maple Ridge parking lot. Behind the pharmacy. A deserted, dimly lit corner of town. Of course she chose that place. I grabbed my coat quietly. Darren didn't stir. Before stepping out, I paused, looking at him, my boy, devastated by a truth he never asked for. I whispered, I'll bring them back to you. I promise. And then I left. The night air was cold enough to sting. The drive took 15 minutes. Maple Ridge Plaza was practically abandoned after 9 p.m., just a dim glow of flickering street lamps and a few shuttered storefronts. When I arrived, Isabella was already there, leaning against her car. Her silhouette was sharp in the moonlight. Arms crossed. Chin lifted. A woman who had been cornered but not defeated. Not yet. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She didn't move. I stepped out of my car, keeping a safe distance. Where are the kids? I asked immediately. She smirked, not kindly, not warmly, just enough to let me know she still believed she was 2 steps ahead. They're safe, she said. Where? I pressed. I'm not telling you that. Her voice tightened. I don't trust you. I let out a bitter laugh. You don't trust me? That's right, she snapped. You've turned Darren against me. I stepped closer. No, you did that. With your lies. With the life you manufactured. Her jaw clenched. I did what I had to do, she said. I made choices. And I stand by them. Even now. I asked softly. After everything fell apart? She looked away, and for the first time I saw something crack in her expression. Not guilt, not regret, but fear. Darren filed emergency custody, I said. By now law enforcement has the notice. The order has been processed. They're looking for you. She laughed bitterly. Of course they are. You never could mind your own business. You made my family my business. She met my gaze sharply. You want to talk family? Fine. Let's talk about the truth you shoved in his face. You think you helped him? No. She stepped closer, her voice low and sharp. You destroyed him. You tore his whole world apart. He deserved the truth, I said. He deserved peace, she shouted. The sound echoed through the empty parking lot. He deserved happiness. Stability. He deserved not to know. I stared at her, stunned. You think ignorance is love? I think survival is love, she said, voice trembling. I think doing what's necessary is love. My stomach twisted. Using him, lying to him, cutting him off from his family. That's love. She took a slow step toward me. You have no idea what I came from, she whispered harshly. You have no idea what I had to do to stay alive. You sit in your perfect little house with your china plates and your neat garden and you judge me. I'm not judging your past, I said softly. I'm judging your choices. Well, maybe your son wasn't strong enough for the truth, she shot back. Maybe he wasn't ready to be a real father. Samuel couldn't be. Darren wanted a ready-made family. I gave him that. I gave him everything. You gave him a lie. She flinched, and for a moment she seemed smaller, less certain. You think I didn't love him? She said quietly. That stopped me. For the first time her voice cracked in a way that wasn't rehearsed. I did love him, she whispered. I loved him because he believed in me. Because he didn't ask questions. Because he made me feel like I could be better than my past. And yet you hid that past, I said. Because if he knew, he would have left me before Leo was born. And he had the right to make that choice. She shook her head violently. No, he didn't. I needed him. I needed someone who wouldn't disappear. Someone who would love my baby like his own. That's what I wanted. That's all I ever wanted. He would have loved Leo anyway, I said. If you told him the truth. You don't know that, she snapped. Yes, I said. I do. She blinked fast. Her lips trembled. But emotion didn't soften her. It hardened her. Where are the kids? I demanded again. Tell me, Isabella. Why? She asked quietly. So you can help Darren take them from me? I stared at her. So you can't run with them. Her eyes flashed. I'm not running, she said. I'm keeping them safe. From who? Their father? Their grandmother? Everyone who loves them. From being taken away, she whispered. You took them away, I said gently. You already did that. You've been doing it for years. Her breath hitched. And do you think they'll ever forgive you? I added quietly. For disappearing with them? For using them as shields? For dragging them through your lies? Isabella looked down. Her hands clenched. Her voice softened into something haunted. I'm their mother, she said. I'm the only one who's never walked away from them. I felt something inside me break at those words. As I suddenly understood. She wasn't just running. She was drowning. She didn't want to lose the kids because without them, she had nothing left. Isabella, I said gently, you can still be part of their lives. But not like this. Not by hiding. Not by running. You need to come back. You need to face what you did. Her breath came harsh and quick. I can't, she said. They'll take them away. I know they will. Not if you cooperate, I said. Not if you stop right now. Not if you show the court you're willing to tell the truth. She looked at me sharply. You don't understand. Darren will never forgive me. I think he might, I said honestly. But he'll never forgive you if you vanish with the children. For the first time her eyes glistened. She stepped back, leaning against her car like her knees were shaking. I didn't want this, she whispered. I didn't want it to go this far. But it did, I said softly. She stared at the pavement. Where are they? I asked again. She closed her eyes. Her lips parted. And then, headlights appeared at the far end of the lot. A police cruiser. Isabella's eyes widened in terror. No, she whispered. No, 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 what did you do? I didn't call them, I said shocked. I swear. But she was already scrambling around to the driver's side door. Don't. I shouted. You'll make this worse. She threw the door open. And then I saw something. Something that made my blood run cold. A pair of tiny sneakers on the backseat floor. Leo's. And beside them a small pink backpack with glitter unicorns. Maya's. My breath caught. Isabella, are they in the car? She froze. Her eyes were wild, fractured, desperate. Then she whispered, I can't lose them. And she climbed into the driver's seat. The cruiser turned into the lot. And in that second, I realized everything was about to go horribly, terribly wrong. Isabella, stop. I shouted, my voice cracking as the police cruiser rolled toward us with slow, deliberate authority. But she didn't stop. Her fingers fumbled across the door, slamming it shut with a trembling thud. Through the window, I saw her grip the steering wheel so tightly the whites of her knuckles glowed under the dim lot lights. The engine coughed to life. Don't you dare, I whispered, stepping toward the car. Not with the kids. Not like this. She looked at me through the glass, eyes wide, frantic, shining with fear. Not anger anymore. Not manipulation. Just fear. Vivian, she mouthed. I have to. No, I said, shaking my head violently. You don't. But she did the one thing I prayed she wouldn't. He put the car in gear. The cruiser sped up, now fully in the lot. The officer's voice boomed through the speaker. Ma'am. Step out of the vehicle. Isabella inhaled sharply. Her fingers trembled. Tears streaked her cheeks. And for the first time since the night she humiliated me on my birthday, I saw a woman truly unraveling. Please, I begged. You will destroy everything. The kids need you to stop. But she wasn't listening anymore. She slammed her foot on the gas. The tires screeched, skidding on the wet pavement. The car lurched forward. I jumped back, nearly slipping. The police cruiser swerved to block her, but she turned sharply, almost losing control, and sped toward the opposite exit. Stop the car, the officer shouted again. But she was gone. She burst out of the lot onto Maple Ridge Road, taillights blurring red before she disappeared into the dark. In the echoing silence, I stood frozen, my breath shallow, my heart pounding. The officer ran toward me. Ma'am, are those children in that car? I swallowed hard. Yes, my grandchildren. He cursed under his breath, then spoke rapidly into his radio, issuing alerts, descriptions, directions. I stood helpless, trembling, watching the road where she'd vanished. He had the children. She was terrified. And she was running. Everything after that spun like a movie I wasn't prepared to watch. Darren was awakened by the pounding on my door 10 minutes later. He stumbled out, confused, until he saw the officer and heard the words. Your wife fled with the children. Thought his heart might stop. He dropped to his knees, hands in his hair, his face contorted with horror. No, she wouldn't take them like that. She already did, I said gently. I have to find them, he cried, jumping up. They could be hurt, they could. The officer stepped forward. Sir, we need you calm. We've issued an Amber Alert. Units are scanning the freeway. We will find them. But Darren's heart was breaking faster than his mind could understand. She's scared, he whispered. She's scared and she's taking it out on them. I should have. Darren, I said, gripping his shoulders, this is not your fault. But he didn't believe me. Not yet. For 4 hours we waited. 4 hours of pacing. 4 hours of shaky breaths. 4 hours of imagining every possible nightmare. Every time a phone buzzed, Darren flinched so hard it looked like the vibration shocked him. I sat across from him at my dining table, so different from the empty table on my birthday, and silently prayed for the call that would end this torment. Round 2:14 a.m. came. The officer's radio crackled. A car matching Isabella's description had been spotted on Route 78, pulled over on the shoulder. Is she there? Are the kids? Darren couldn't finish the sentence. We don't know yet, sir. Units are approaching. Seconds stretched. Minutes felt like years. Then, we have the children. They're safe. Darren collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Relief, agony, love. Everything poured out of him. What about Isabella? I asked. The officer listened again. She's in custody. I closed my eyes. Not with triumph. Not with satisfaction. With exhaustion. With grief. With relief that the worst impulse of a desperate woman hadn't ended in tragedy. When we reached the highway station, the kids were sitting in a small break room with blankets wrapped around them. Leo was awake, scared but alert. Maya slept curled against an officer's shoulder, clutching her unicorn backpack. Darren rushed to them, dropping to his knees. Daddy! Leo cried, throwing his arms around him. Darren held both kids against his chest, shaking with sobs. I'm here, he whispered over and over. I'm here. I stood at the doorway, tears spilling silently. They were safe. They were alive. They were still his. Grandma, Leo said, reaching for me. I knelt and wrapped my arms around him, breathing in the scent of his hair, warm from sleep and fear. I missed you, he whispered. I missed you too, sweetheart. He leaned close. Mommy was crying a lot. My heart clenched. Did she hurt you? Darren asked gently. Leo shook his head. No. She just kept saying she couldn't let us go. But I didn't understand. I smoothed his hair. None of this was your fault. Not a single thing. They allowed us to see Isabella only briefly as she was led down the hallway in handcuffs. Her hair was messy, her face streaked with dried tears, her eyes red and dazed. But when she saw Darren holding the children, something inside her cracked. Darren, please, she choked out. I wasn't going to hurt them. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. He looked at her, not with hatred, not with rage. With heartbreak. You should have told me the truth, he whispered. She sobbed. I'm sorry. I didn't want to lose everything. You lost it the moment you ran, he said. Her knees buckled. Officers steadied her, then escorted her away. And she didn't look back again. In the months that followed, everything changed. Isabella was charged with child endangerment, identity fraud, and violating a custody order. She entered a rehabilitation program and eventually accepted supervised visitation instead of fighting for custody. She didn't disappear this time. She didn't reinvent herself. She faced the consequences, maybe for the first time in her life. Darren gained full custody of both children. He and Samuel had long emotional talks. Hard ones. Honest ones. Eventually they found a balance, co-parenting Leo in a way that honored biology and love equally. Samuel became part of our family not as a threat but as a quiet, steady presence. Leo called him Dad Sam, though it took time. Maya, young enough to adapt, accepted him easily. And Darren. He healed slowly. He relearned how to trust. He rebuilt his life piece by fragile piece. He never remarried. Not yet. He wasn't ready. But he became stronger than I'd ever seen him. Wiser. Kinder to himself. As for me, the woman who once sat alone at an untouched birthday table. The woman humiliated by silence and absence. The woman strategic lies tried to erase. I got my family back. Not the way I imagined. Not the way I wanted. But I got them back. I became the grandmother present at every school event, every soccer game, every dance recital. My house was full again, with drawings on the fridge, shoes in the hallway, giggles echoing down the stairs. The erasure Isabella planned never happened. Life, messy as it was, wrote me back in bold letters. And now that you've heard the entire story, I want to ask you, what would you have done if you were in my place? Comment below and don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps these stories reach more people who need them.